Episode 5 hit the hardest so far, breaking the halfway point with even more symbolism deeper into the story, and this episode I think shows us a bit more about what Pennywise or the Galoo can actually do. Let's talk about all of it. Welcome to Real Enigmas and Theories. This video will contain spoilers for It Welcome to Derry Season 1 up to Episode 5, so without further ado, let's cook. Well, it looks like Halloran doesn't know his own strength. I mean, Taniel didn't have a chance. Halloran debowed the information right out of his mind like a creepy militant Mr. Rogers, and the general looked like he was enjoying every bit of it. I mean, how did they even know he could do that? Who were Halloran's previous victims? This time seems like the first time he'd ever had a harsh effect on somebody like this. I mean, if they knew something like this could happen, they would have probably had some medics ready to go on the scene already. Maybe it was the level of information retrieved. The whole scene with Halloran going into Taniel's mind that way makes me know that we need that Halloran spinoff ASAP. Bro just went crazy and body slammed homie's third eye. And speaking of eye, old girl Margie's eye is damn near chiseled to perfection. She's sitting up in the bed crying to Lily. If this is what it takes for you to believe your friend, then you thought she was crazy right along with everybody else, and that's why you was over there plotting with the patty cakes. I gotta say, she did think of a story real quick to keep Lily out of Juniper Hill, because she could have just let them take her away. And that's what she gets for trying to impress people that don't even like her. Phony ass people will sit there and talk shit about you with people who they know don't like you, and then they sit up there and wonder why karma strikes. Will over here asking if she okay. Nah, fam, she's not okay. She almost ended up like Skelly Man. Elgin in the show From, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, the kids head to the hangout spot. Now, the town of Derry sits in what was known as the Western Woods, where the Galoo lives and was trapped by the native children hundreds of years ago. Those native children are the OG Losers Club. Phil and Ted's hangout spot was at the edge of town pointing west from the observatory. Shit, Will might as well just bring his telescope up there. Y'all done came up here and started chilling and shit. Richie done threw a couple of the man's planes down off of there. Will done walked off with a couple comics. Boy, where the hell you come from? Here we go again with the drapery and tent symbolism. So Keanu Reeves comes out the tent and then the theme song comes on. We get back from the intro and the general looks like he's about to call upon the ancestors with this damn cigar. He explains to Major Hanlon what just happened in there with Halloran flipping through Taniel's head like the morning newspaper. He breaks it down about how Taniel is the protector or the keeper of the pillars and that they're about to go down into the Kneebolt house and try to find them. I broke down the Masonic pillars from the trailer and we get to see them in this episode too, later. Hanlon rightfully felt some type of way about the general letting him and his family move into Derry knowing the Galoo was there, so he decides to move his family back to base outside of town. So the kids are back at the hangout spot with Keanu telling them about how the clown kept some of them alive for the fear and how Teddy and Susie were dead but Phil is still alive. Fun fact. Phil and Susie are siblings in real life. So Will's the one asking the real questions like, how the hell did you get out of there? And Maddie says that he escaped during the day while it was sleeping. Now, I wonder if Maddie would have never traded Lily for that turtle, would it have protected him? I think that the turtle charm is what has protected Lily thus far and even helped her to stop the attack on Margie. Another fun fact, Miles Eckert, the actor who plays Maddie, also plays in the movie Turtles All the Way Down as Noah. And that film is a reflection of events happening here in It Welcomes to Derry. Maddie goes missing and is afraid of his father. And in Turtles All the Way Down, Noah's father goes missing and Miles plays the morning sun. We see a lot of those kind of mirrors between TV shows, even on different streaming platforms and studios. Like, look at Welcome to Derry Season 1 promo and how it mirrors the Stranger Things Season 1 promo. Anyway, Hank Grogan is being transferred to Shawshank, and bro came out of the jail looking like Tyrese in his Django audition. Charlotte was there and got a whiff of the Galoo's presence, and let me tell you, that whiff looked like it was musty as hell. Phil and Susie's dad, well, I'm thinking that's Phil and Susie's dad because he said what you did to my kids, and those were the only two siblings in the situation. I think that's Phil and Susie's dad. He pulls up and tries to jack Ruby Hank Grogan, but the cops actually did their job and saved him before putting him on the Shawshank bus. Charlotte went back home to call her connections in the South and see if she could get Hank out before something happened to him at Shawhank. And her husband pulls up and tells them that they have to move, and so they head out. And when they get to the base, Will can't stop thinking about his friends. So he asks could he go for a walk, and you already know he snuck out, made his way back to Derry. And right after he left, a news report came on the TV and announced a prison break from the bus headed to Shawshank, and Hank got away. Meanwhile, the keepers of the pillars were having a meeting, and the chief elder said something very telling. He said the discharge from the Galoo gets into the Derry water system and influences the people. Discharge? So you mean to tell me that the old Galoo is dumping his kids off at the pool? Or is he taking shits in the water? What the hell do you mean discharge? See, Pennywise is doing too damn much. I mean, if he's eating, he gotta be shitting somewhere. Something else I noticed was how in tune the natives were about the information about the Galoo and the discharge it leaves in the water. I mean, how would they even know that? That's why Maddie made this face right here when he drank that water. The boy's lips was so dry you could pluck skin flakes off it. Lips looked like Tom Hanks' ankles from Castaway. Nah, I think the writers were trying to hint at something about the drinking water, and we'll talk about that later. Anyway, during that meeting, one of Tanyu's crew came in to tell Rose that her nephew had been captured by the military. So she goes down there to speak with Shaw, and I've got to say, they definitely need better security at that base. Okay, I could see Major Hanlon busting in there like that, but you got regular civilians coming in charging in the general's office like somebody walking up to the self-checkout. But he tells her straight up, yo, your nephew will be released after we get done with this mission. But until then, he ain't going no damn where. Then he comes clean about remembering what happened in Derry and explains that he'd been given a drug as a security protocol that made him remember everything. I think Shaw was once a test subject in the MK Ultra experiments back in 1957. He said that he'd been given that drug 5 years before, which would be 1957 from 1962. Now, for years, intelligence and military research hid their drug experiments behind the language of safety and procedure. Recruits, patients, and even volunteers were told that they were participating in security protocols and readiness screenings and standard protective measures and, all that type of language. They made it look like these chemicals were part of some normal defense operation. They pulled the okey doke on the people and had them thinking that they were contributing to national protection rather than being used as test subjects. But behind the bullshit, these protocols were vehicles for LSD trials, sensory disruption compounds, all kind of behavioral modification drugs, everything, you name it. You had hospitals, mental asylums, and military bases all adopting that same vocabulary so that their cover stories would be uniform no matter where the experiment was taking place. And I think Shaw was one of those test subjects. But by him remembering what happened in Derry and having firsthand knowledge of a potential weapon, he became more valuable and gained access to the program instead of just being accessed by the program. Not to mention, his father was also in the service. And this is why we see him heading this whole psychic research with Halloran. And something tells me that that wasn't the first time they'd used Halloran's abilities. We later on see in an abusive past shot from Halloran's past, his grandfather also wanted to use his abilities, but that could have been it taking control of his grandfather. But we'll talk about that later. But now we got Major Hanlon in the picture. And I told you in my last video that I think Hanlon is working on his own secret investigation. That's probably what those masked men were trying to find out. And we know that wasn't the first time the military used Halloran's abilities, because they were using it right then on Leroy. Now, in the real world, inside the intelligence agencies, the truth about MK Ultra didn't leak because the system suddenly grew a conscience and wanted to tell everybody about what they were doing. It leaked because of a handful of insiders just like Major Hanlon, and they broke ranks and quietly exposed the experiments being done on humans. You had analysts, lab technicians, mid-level officers like Hanlon. They realized that these drug experiments had crossed into a territory that violated the law and basic humanity. And these individuals were running silent personal missions, risking their lives and their careers to safely make sure to record these things so that it couldn't be erased. Now look at how Hanlon is playing things. He's doing the same thing. He's just letting Shaw expose himself. He's finding out more and more information, and he's making sure that Shaw doesn't get too suspicious and close him out. Now you gotta think, when the CIA ordered all the MK Ultra files to be destroyed in 1973, what we see Hanlon doing in the acts of resistance kind of became the only surviving trail of the MK Ultra experiments. Like if Major Shaw tried to bury this, Hanlon would have some information that he could expose it with. And the exposure of MK Ultra was the result of an underground network of conscious people who saw what was happening. They recognized the danger of that secrecy, and they took strategic steps to make sure that the evidence didn't get buried. When the CIA tried to bury that stuff in 1973, you had all types of hidden boxes coming out of storage rooms. Anonymous packets was being sent to senators and reporters and journalists, all types of people. Like throughout the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, the intelligence community hid those chemical experiments behind phrases like security protocols and protective measures and whatnot. Then you had a bunch of Negro public officials that started a resistance because it was paralleling something that was happening to their people. Now, what they discovered forced the state and the federal systems to confront these patterns of unethical practices, and most of those things were actually funded through MK Ultra sub-projects. The crazy part is most of the people that was stumbling across this stuff was stumbling across it because they were investigating the Tuskegee experiments, which were ran by the U.S. Public Health Service and the CDC. And this shit was going on before MK Ultra in 1932 all the way to 1972. Yeah, that's right. The CDC is who carried out the Tuskegee experiments for 40 years. MK Ultra was run by the CIA starting in 1953. So when the Tuskegee syphilis experiments was finally exposed in 1972, it totally destroyed that whole culture of secrecy that protected the CIA MK Ultra project. This is all facts. You could go look it up. Now, I wonder if the general is lying though, because he kept that slingshot all those years before he enlisted into the service. And we know he is a liar. He could have retained those memories because of that slingshot. Now, we know that Rose was one of the keepers, and the natives keep that oral tradition of the Galoo so that the keepers don't forget. Remember, Rose asked Francis if he could keep a secret, thinking that he'd forget about that stuff. She told him a story about the Galoo and about the pillars, but she didn't tell him the location. But she gave him the slingshot back, and it holding residual energy from being used against the Galoo could be something that kept his memories intact. So Rose agrees to let her nephew go on the mission after Shaw reveals that he knows where the pillars are. So she goes home to grab the original dagger that was carved from the star and brings it back to Tanya for the mission the next morning. And it was getting kind of late. So you got Lily pulling up to Ingrid's house to tell her about Maddie showing up. And she tells Ingrid about her plans to go into the sewers with her friends and find Phil. but Ingrid tells her not to go, and Lily promises that she wouldn't go. This is the part that tripped me out though. Ingrid is the wife of Stanley Kirsch, and dude is not the happy-go-lucky cat from the butcher shop at all. He has a real dark vibe, and it seems like he doesn't even really rock with his wife too tough. He tells her to get the steak and don't overcook it this time. She must have made it well done the last time. Probably had somebody else in mind while she was cooking, if you get my drift. So Lily leaves the Kirsch's crib and heads straight to the hangout with Maddie, Richie, and Ronnie. And she tells the gang that they can't go to the police station because they wouldn't believe them, and they just send Maddie back to his parents. Her plan is to pop a couple of her mom's happy pills and head into the sewers to get filled. I mean, most kids back then wanted to smoke a little bit of pot and watch a movie, but these kids was on some whole other shit. I guess with the theater being closed, the kids gotta find something to do, so the Barons it is. They all agree to go just as Will pulls up and he's ready to go too, so they head to the Barons to enter the sewer system. I just want to say this real quick. Lily could have just showed them Susie's arm and told them that she saw someone else. Ronnie didn't see what happened, but she saw the arm too. Where is the arm? What the hell did she do with it? I mean, they're talking about going to the sewers with something that you know can change into any kind of creature. And for all you know, this could be multiple creatures. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments. Anyway, let's keep it moving. At the same time, the military is launching a full-on strike mission to head into the sewers through the Neibolt house with instructions to shoot anything that shouldn't be down there. But the dancing clown's down there. You know, the one who's caused plenty cries and taken many lives? Yeah, Pennywise. It feeds off fear to thrive. Just the type of shit that the military is looking to weaponize. But the dancing clown's like, yeah, step inside and be petrified beneath the streets of Derry where few escape to testify. It's best to hide. Don't get left behind with this ancient boss that'll hijack your thoughts and catch a ride to the deepest parts in your mind where your fears reside. So Fuller leads his chapter through the sewers to capture this clown who's been snatching kids up like the Rapture. Halloran, Hanlon, Russo, and in the front was Tanu. No playbook, no manual, into the lion's den, just like the book of Daniel. They've taken orders to step into the borders of this ancient deity who leaves discharge in the water. And of course it leaks into the town of Derry's water system. This organism frightens the child victims and makes the adults dismiss them, which is precisely the reason why it had to be contained with ancient wisdom. Taniel, Halloran, and Hanlon are key players in this expedition. Taniel the keeper, Halloran the seeker, and Hanlon has no fear of the opposition. Adrenaline rushing, blood pumping.
Can you feel it?
I feel something.
Something's off, he can feel it in his gut.
Y'all hear that?
Hear what?
Halloran hears the voice of an ancestor. Maybe it's his transgressor conjured by this mad jester. He hears it again. A familiar voice amongst a company of men messing with his mind.
Come on, go. We're gonna fall behind.
He jumps into the waters distorted. The tunnels vanish, feet unsupported. Dick Halloran's been transported to some sort of vacuum flood where he swims to the top and pops out of his childhood bathroom tub. Meanwhile, Tanu runs and leaves the soldiers and drops the dagger. And the children are down at the Barrens preparing to go into the sewers by popping some of Lily's chlorpromazine that they think is her mom's. They all pop 3 pills like they about to go see Finesse 2 times. If Pennywise doesn't kill him, maybe those pills might. So they're walking down the tunnels and they begin to feel the effects of the pills, all of them except for Maddie. And you already know where we're going with this. They come to a dead end and the bodies of Susie, Teddy, Phil, and Maddie come floating up out of the water. Pennywise was disguised as Maddie the whole time. He chases them and they all run, but Lily falls and gets left behind. She ends up running in a different direction and then comes to another dead end. And Pennywise backs her in, and just as he charges to make the kill, The dagger that Tanyel drops starts lighting up in the water, and it pretty much saves her. These dudes right here must have been scared of Uncle Sam or something. Peep the egg symbolism though. Leroy and Russo had an encounter with it as well when Leroy hears the voice of his wife and he sees her in the sewers acting like she's scared. Russo couldn't see her, so Leroy knew to shoot her without hesitation. And he lets Russo know to shoot anything that shouldn't be down there. He don't care if it's the baker, your mailman, your high school gym teacher, shoot it. But that plan kind of backfires when they see the kids running through the tunnel and Leroy prepares to shoot his son Will, but Russo realizes that he can see and hear Will, so he must be really him. He jumps in front of Hanlon's gun and catches one right in the chest. Leroy instructs the kids to run and get out of there, so he picks up Russo and carries him out. Halloran's situation was painful to watch. His granny had got shot by the abusive grandpa. Oh, I almost forgot about the plot. Pennywise was in disguise to open Halloran's power box. Remember how Halloran did Tanyel's trip? Pennywise was doing the same thing because he peeped the manuscript. Pennywise got Halloran to release his powers. I bet it smells like, if not better than the fear he devours when tears turn to showers. Pennywise manipulates reality in totality, fatality, so he can feast upon humanity. Symptoms can range from docile to insanity, causing calamities right before he goes back to sleep. So Halloran makes it out through the barrens and he sees the ghost of Russo. And we get a shot of the power box wide open on the floor. And this is a result of his shining ability. That's how he was able to see the floating people in the vision from the airplane. Because I don't think Pennywise is just willingly showing these things to him. Pennywise even had to ask him who he was. The visions from the carnival, the stagecoach. He even saw Lily's drain and Beverly's bathroom, which is a future event. And if you go back to It Part 2 in 2019, Pennywise had given them their future, and I think that it was a part of Halloran's abilities that he adopted and copied. I think that it was really his grandmother that was showing him these events, just like Halloran was visiting Danny Torrance in Dr. Sleep. And we know that Danny Torrance's powers were very similar to Halloran's. But you have the young girl from The True Knot, for instance, her powers were a little bit different. She could compel people. And Halloran and Danny Torrance can see dead people, and that's why he's seeing Russo's body walking around. We know that Hanlon carried him away. Another part that's in It Part 2 is when Miss Kirsch tells Beverly that when people die in Derry that they don't really die.
No one who dies here ever really dies.
And speaking of Miss Kirsch, you know, this Miss Kirsch got me wondering if that Miss Kirsch is this Miss Kirsch. I don't know which is worse. The fact that she could sit in front of Lily and lie unrehearsed, or the fact that she sits down as a silent perk while the cops are dispersed on an innocent man immersed in his thirst. This chick is cursed. Now, they had the kids taking chlorpromazine and the general talking about drugs being administered. And I think that the writers were trying to make a nod to the pharmaceuticals that enter our water supply through human urine and waste. I say this because the chief elder said that the discharge had an effect on the residents of Derry. And this could explain their docile nature when it comes to the way the adults forget about things, along with how they treat the children when their children are telling them about it. Now, on the flip side of that, medicines in the real world that cause those same kind of effects make their way into our water supply, and it creates a real environmental impact that people really don't talk about much. Pharmaceuticals are designed to be biologically active, and the human body rarely metabolizes them completely. A significant portion of antidepressants, antibiotics, hormones, blood pressure medication, painkillers, anticonvulsants, all types of meds pass through the body unchanged, and it exists in the urine, and then it's flushed into the water system. Now, these compounds survive because ordinary treatment plants are not engineered to remove those kind of complex synthetic molecules. So they slip through the filters and bypass the disinfection stage. They flow right into waters, reservoirs, groundwater, and in many cities, it goes right back into the processed drinking water. And that bottled water that you're buying in the store isn't safe from that either, because many bottled water brands give the impression that their products come from untouched springs or deep ancient aquifers and things of that nature, but it's really municipal tap water. Estimates from consumer and environmental studies show that anywhere from 40 to 70% of bottled water sold in the USA starts in the public water system in the drinking water that you find in your faucet. Companies purchase this supply, they run it through their additional filtration steps like reverse osmosis and UV treatment, and then they brand it as purified. Then they sell it at a markup that can exceed several thousand%. You got these crazy label designs and snow-covered peaks, glacier blue stuff, and all these mountain mythical springs. It's all part of an illusion and a marketing strategy to reinforce a perception of purity that doesn't even reflect the actual source where the water comes from. Crazy part is that their filtration methods aren't enough to combat the chemical combination of pharmaceutical libation. Now, let me know if I've earned a like and a hype. Drop down in the comments, get the conversation started. And if you're not subbed, hopefully this be the video to make you do it. I've been covering this show from the beginning. Check out some of my other videos here and lock in on this playlist. Share this joint to someone who watches the show. Now, episode 4 was my favorite, but this episode edges it a little bit for me with showing us some of the stuff that it can do as far as being able to come out during the daytime and impersonate a whole person and play the part so well that you thought it was really him. I know so many thought that Maddie and Phil weren't dead, and this episode shows the planning for that theory with that crushing scene with all the bodies floating in the water one by one. Such a sad scene, and it kind of mirrors the scene with Leroy losing one of his friends down there too. The acting from the children during that reveal was on point, and all I can say is I can't wait for episode 6. But until then, go check out my first video right here that I did before the series got started and tap in on this playlist right here. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right, peace.